All right, let's go. This is from June of 1999, and I'll just say it's mostly just poems of a particular lady that I like, because you're not going to see this anywhere else. I think it's even out of print probably. Memorial Weekend 1999, and there are plenty of memories. It makes me want to share, seated at the word processor with spring all over the garden on this unofficial start of summer. But let's not gush over the purple blue bonnets that ring the grassy knolls and valleys of the yard in my view from the window above this machine. Only now, 3 acorn woodpeckers flash their white-black wings from the neighbor's pecan to the half-dead tree scraggling into the sky across the alley. They're not common visitors in my yard, and when they land in a cluster of brilliant red heads, it's too beautiful for words. The only trouble is words is what we've got to work with. Every once in a while I chance on an author who is such a master that I want to share, and that is the case with a French nun from the last century, Carmen Bernos de Gastaut. Her Prayers from the Ark, translated by Rumer Godden, are supposed to be prayers by animals, but many of them echo my thoughts so masterfully that I will copy a few of the poems that I particularly identify with. First, I give you the prayer of the goat. Lord, let me live as I will. I need a little wild freedom, a little giddiness of heart, the strange taste of unknown flowers. For whom else are your mountains, your snow wind, these springs? The sheep do not understand. They graze and graze, all of them, and always in the same direction, and then eternally chew the cud of their insipid routine. But I love to bound to the heart of all your marvels, leap your chasms, and my mouth stuffed with intoxicating grasses, quiver with an adventurer's delight on the summit of the world. Amen. Amen, I say too. She nails it, and me, and then she does it over and over again, at least for fickle me. Check out the prayer of the cock. Do not forget, Lord, it is I who make the sunrise. I'm your servant, but with the dignity of my calling, I need some glitter and ostentation. Noblesse oblige. All the same, I am your servant, only do not forget, Lord, I make the sunrise. Amen. Well, amen to that too. But to even things out, and equally apt for me, is the prayer of the ox. Lord, give me time. Men are always so driven. Make them understand that I can never hurry. Give me time to eat. Give me time to plod. Give me time to sleep. Give me time to think. Amen. Again, I say amen, and then I move on to the prayer of the elephant, because, dear God, it is I, the elephant, your creature, who is talking to you. I'm so embarrassed by my great self, and truly it's not my fault if I spoil your jungle with my big feet. Let me be careful and behave wisely, always keeping my dignity and poise. Give me such philosophic thoughts that I can rejoice wherever I go in the lovable oddity of things. Amen. Amen. One of the prayers that I don't identify particularly with, but I think is just spot on, is the prayer of the cat. It's perfect. Lord, I am the cat. It's not exactly that I have something to ask of you. No, I ask nothing of anyone. But if you have by some chance in some celestial barn a little white mouse, a saucer of milk, I know someone who would relish them. Wouldn't you like someday to put a curse on the whole race of dogs? If so, I say amen. Amen again. She nails cats, and then she does the same thing for insects in the prayer of the ant. Lord, I'm always made out to be wrong, a fable to the whole world. Certainly I hoard and make provision. I have my rights, and surely I can take a little joy in the fruits of all my work without some sob singer coming to rob my store. There is something in your justice that I scarcely understand, and if you would allow me to advise, it may be thought over again. I have never been a burden to anybody, and if I may say so, I manage my own business very well. Then, to the incorrigible improvidence of some people, must I, for all eternity, say, Amen? my sympathy to the ant. But the bug I identify with is the prayer of the butterfly. Lord, where was I? Oh yes, this flower, the sun, thank you. Your world is beautiful. The scent of roses. Where was I? A drop of dew rolls to sparkle in the lily's heart. I have to go. I don't know where. The wind has painted fancies on my ring. Fancies? Where was I? Oh yes, Lord, I have something to tell you. Amen. Amen, yes. If you've got any of these letters, you know that my handwriting is inelegant and sometimes difficult to decipher. So I've been thinking of transcribing them through this machine, but it was no more than a thought until a month ago or so when I happened to pick up a letter that was dated April 1989, on the same day that we Americans began dropping bombs on Kosovo. And my letter seemed so relevant that I actually copied a couple of paragraphs before the paper ran a front page story that President Clinton had made a public acknowledgement and apology for our involvement with right-wing death squads in Central America during the Reagan years. I dropped the recopy and I drafted a letter to the newspaper saying that our complicity in that violence and death certainly merited an apology, but it was an affront to civility and justice to so apologize while simultaneously pushing related agendas on other fronts. The letter was published by the Bee, and then there was no other commentary from any source. There was no other commentary from any source about the apology or our heinous involvement there. But meanwhile, it's bombs away in Kosovo, and 2 months have passed, and that letter from 10 years ago is coming to you now as originally written, and this was dated April 1989. I was on lunch hour with friends and mentioned a poem that I had read about murderous women. The conversation drifted to actual murder by women, and I said that among the natives of the Great Plains it was a common practice in pre-Columbian days for captured warriors to be brought to home camp so the women could torture them to death for the general amusement. I added that by extension, since most people on earth until very recently had lived in such tribal society, women had probably been willing in casual torture. My friend, who carries some resentment over preferential treatment given to gender or race, jumped on this, and he dared me to put into my next letter, telling me that if I did, any feminist who read it would hurl the letter and a stream of invective back in my face. That could happen, but that sort of bigot is not among my readers, and if some or any of you are so deeply offended, well, goodbye. These letters are delivered about equally to the sexes, and I'm not writing to men or women, but directly to you. If you sense our kinship, you may be, with me, intrigued by our shared history of torture. But if your feminist sensibilities have been hurt because women are different from men and would never, ever have taken pleasure in the careful mutilation of a fallen enemy, you better quit reading. Last January, Rick, my friend and companion from my past, came to visit, and he had not seen these letters that I'd written for a couple of years, and I, who loved to read them aloud, seized the chance, selecting and reading some to him, including one that had not been generally distributed, but rather had gone out only to professional religious people. The gist of that letter was, evil is knowingly supported at the risk of the soul. Both Republican and Democratic candidates advocate foreign policy that is evil. Voting for either is supporting such evil. Therefore, vote for someone, anyone, not advocating such evil behavior for the good of the soul. There had been only one response, a Methodist minister who agreed that both parties were evil, but as no other candidate had any chance of election, casting a vote for anyone else would simply not be practical. I wrote back to him, sending copies to the other professional religious people too, asking how could a vote that was practical but immoral be justified? No one replied. When I finished reading, Rick was quite frank when he told me that he understood why there had been no reply, because what I had written was condemnatory rant, the sort of inflammatory rhetoric used by pro-life fundamentalists, the sort of rhetoric no one should dignify with a reply. I said that It was no such condemnation, but rather a question phrased as clearly and sincerely as I was able, after years of thought, and then sent only to people who make their living as professional religious and who had represented an interest in moral questions. I reminded my friend that I am a low-level bureaucrat from an unfashionable neighborhood of a backwater town, and I lack the authority to condemn anyone for anything. What I'd written was sincere questioning that merited a reply, and if any recipient felt condemned, they should justify themselves with a reasoned reply or change their evil ways. My friend said baldly that the letters were condemnatory rant, unworthy of a reply, and he's pretty sharp, and he might be right, but I don't think so. While I was in South America in 1971, it came out in major media that the USA had set up a school outside of Washington, D.C., where police and military from around the world are taught at American taxpayer expense physical techniques of torture, like where to attach electrical wires, and psychological methods such as sending electrical current through children in front of their parents. At first, I would not believe it, as I was full of John Wayne and I had no mental image of evil America, but it continued to be reported in various sources, even Time magazine, and it was never disputed or denied. And today, that in 1989 when I first wrote this, and in 1999 when I recopied it, and today, in 2017, many graduates of our school are in positions of power around the world, indebted to us for their training and their power. If any feminist is offended by reference to torture long ago and far away, let me point out that that has nothing to do with now and you. If women did tie some poor soul down and then burn and gouge him to death, what does that have to do with us? Nothing. But current torture by American trainees may not be disclaimed by asserting that it is the work only of men. All people are enfranchised, we can all vote, we are all complicit. Just so for any religious who are offended, our representative government has established a school of torture and has not apologized or forsworn to continue the vile practice, even today. If anyone supports this, even tacitly or ignorantly, I want to offend you. Your conscience should bother you. You should be ashamed. Yet, many people feel our policy is justified because it's practical. They say it's a competitive world and a person and a nation must do whatever is necessary to be number one. Yeah, well, that ends my recopy of the letter from 1989 and the recopying in 1999 too, except there's one more prayer from the Ark that I want to read to you, and perhaps my favorite of all and the one that I most identify with, and this is called the Prayer of the Little Bird. Dear God, I don't know how to pray myself very well, but will you please protect my little nest from wind and rain? Put a great deal of dew on the flowers, many seeds in my way. Make your blue very high, your branches lissome. Let your kind light stay late in the sky, and set my heart brimming with such music that I must sing, sing, sing. Praise, Lord. Amen. Oh yeah, amen. Let me sing and write from Fresno with peace and love. Eric.
Amen.